All those meeting in order, can you join me in the pledge? Thank you for joining us today. At this time, I take a motion to approve the agenda.
Madam President, I'd like to make a motion to approve the agenda as presented with the following amendments: additional certified and classified personnel actions for consideration, item E-3. Add item E-4-D, other, consider approval of the purchase of replacement hardware and software. And 3, add item E-4-E, other, consider approval and revised job description for title programs and services coordinator.
There's a motion to approve the agenda with amendments. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Janine. Any discussion? Do you want to do a roll call since we have Alex on Zoom? Okay. Stephanie, do you want to call the roll?
Maura?
Aye.
Dana? Aye. Janine? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Alex?
Aye.
We do have some public comments. So for those who are here for public comments, just to remind you, you do have 5 minutes to speak. And if you could come to the podium to be heard. And we will start with Ali Hernandez.
Hi, my name is Ali Hernandez and I go to Kenneth Henderson Middle School. I'm in jazz band and KH singers. Every year, the jazz band, choirs, and orchestras from Kenneth Henderson and Horace Good Middle School get to go to different schools and perform for them to get the younger students involved in music and to show off our hard work. This year, we haven't been allowed to, even though sports get to travel out of town to play full contact without masks. Many people agree that we should have been able to go. To show that, I started an online petition that got 318 signatures. I hope that you will reconsider allowing us to perform. I can also email you the petition or show you.
Thank you. Darby Reimer.
As we all know, tour has been an important part of people's lives for a very long time. One of the reasons why it is so important to us is because of the inspiration it brings children. Tour is supposed to show younger students what it is like to perform music in a band, orchestra, or choir class. In fact, I signed up for band and choir because of the music I heard during tour concerts. I can remember the days in elementary and intermediate school watching with amazement as the band, orchestra, and choir classes performed their songs. I was waiting with anticipation and excitement for the day when I would do the same. While I do understand the safety concerns of COVID-19 changing many plans and causing many cancellations, I do not understand how sports teams can go on throughout their seasons, traveling to different towns and being in close contact with others during practice and competitions, while one musical tour for just one day in one town cannot happen. As I am sure that sports are very important to many individuals, likewise music is very important to me. Going on this tour will help inspire younger students to join the music program, discover their talents, and help lift up people's minds, hearts, hopes, and spirits with the sounds of good music. Thank you for hearing my point of view today.
Courtney Nealon.
Good evening. My name is Courtney Nealand. I'm an 8th grade student at HDMS, and I'm here tonight on behalf of both middle school jazz bands. Tonight I came to bring up the issue of the band music tour being canceled. I, as well as many other students, think that this is unfair. This is the highlight of being a jazz band each year to go recruit kids at the local intermediate schools for the next school year. This is not just a field trip, and this is necessary to grow the music department at both middle schools. Also, do you realize that we have only played one concert together in almost a year? We are hurting just as bad as the sports programs are. We need to be able to play together to improve. It does not make sense to me how the sports teams are able to travel and compete out of town with few precautions when we have less students who will be traveling in town, wearing masks and socially distanced. The only time masks will be off is when we are playing our instruments. We are at the lowest rates and the lowest level we have been, 3.5, and we have been at so far this year. So there really is no plausible reason to deny us this opportunity to perform, as well as the intermediate students to see what we are all about. Thank you for your time, and I hope you will reconsider your decision to cancel the tour.
Thank you all very much for coming and speaking today.
Great job.
Dr. Carlin, will you be addressing those comments at some point or getting back in contact with all three of those families?
Yeah, Madam President, I can follow up. I have gathered a little bit of information about this already, but I'll be happy to reach out to the families and report back to the board on this situation with more details after we've had a chance to put everything together. So, girls, you did a tremendous job presenting tonight. Very well spoken. I'd really like to compliment you on that. I would also encourage you always to, when you have concerns, please feel free to visit with your teacher, with your building principal, and if you don't get your concerns resolved with me or someone from this office that may be able to help you get your concern resolved or understand what's going on with the issue, we're always happy to do that. But you did an outstanding job tonight, and I will follow up here in the near future with you on this.
Thank you very much. And that takes us to our building presentation with Gertrude Walker.
I believe.
Hi, all. Thanks.
There we go.
I'm sorry.
I was just going to introduce you, Amy. So,
Okay, go ahead.
so we have Amy Hollingsworth, the principal of Gertrude Walker, who's with us tonight via Zoom, and we'll turn it over to Amy.
Okay, I'm going to go ahead and share my screen here. Can everyone see that okay?
Yes, thank you.
Great. So it's my pleasure to share with the board with how Gertrude Walker's doing over the last year or so. When I think about just this year of COVID and our staff and our students and our families, I just feel like we're a picture of resilience. So many new things going on, so many different ways to be flexible, and I'm just really proud to be a part of this family, this Gertrude Walker family. So I just want to highlight the people that have made us resilient. So here's our office staff. They have been incredible, and I want to take this chance to thank the leadership and the school board for our nurses right here in the middle. It's so wonderful to have a nurse here every day this year to help us navigate all the questions we have about COVID. So thank you so much for providing that. That has been just a lifesaver for all of us. And these are the secretaries. They have a lot of new things thrown at them, and they come every day just positive, and they're flexible, and we do a lot of problem solving, figure things out. And here's our nutrition staff. They are incredible. I just am so thankful for their flexibility as we've gone up and down the different levels. Now we have yellow classrooms. Every season we have yellow classrooms, and they have just been awesome. And again, just positive and come to work every day ready to help out our kiddos. And then, of course, our custodial staff do a lot of extra cleaning this year. And anytime there's a bathroom break, our custodian is right there waiting to rush in and clean the bathroom. So we've been very healthy in our building, and I'm very thankful for all the cleaning they're doing. It's ended up making a huge impact on our ability to stay on site. And our parents, this is a picture of one of their contributions this year. We have an active PTO, and one of our parents, with her connection to her husband's work at AmeriCorps, were able to donate a touchless water fountain to our schools. We're really thankful for that. But just our parents in general, as we've gone to levels 5 and 6, and the strain that has made on their families, they have just been so wonderful and resilient, and have done everything they can to support their students and communicate with us, and they've just been so wonderful to work with. So thank you for our parents. And then of course our teachers. It really hit me in August at our building retreat, our admin retreat, that education was about to change pretty drastically. And our staff has just done an amazing job of being innovative and flexible and supporting each other. There's always someone there whenever there's a need, and they have just done an incredible job of meeting our students' needs. So I'm so proud to work with these guys. And then of course our students. Over here we have one of our students that's showing how he's participating from home. One of our summer school packets. We're a KRR school, which we're really proud of, and we're very thankful for that program. I'm very thankful for our Engage program as well. So they send packets home with students to do some family activities and to engage in content. So here's a picture of one of our guys doing that. And then this is a second grade class eating lunch in the classroom. I thought this might be a pretty big shift for everybody, but it really went off without a hitch. We have big guards between the kids to help keep them safe, and the kids have been doing a really good job of keeping the classrooms clean and taking care of that. So that's been a much better experience than I thought it would be, having kids eat in the classroom. And they too have just been so resilient. Their compliance with the masks and the hand washing and everything, I just never heard any complaints. They're just glad to be in school and glad to be learning. We also have just started up our robotics program. We had one last year. We had 2 teams. This year we have 3 teams. So we're excited to get all the construction done and start competition. And then this is our Engage staff. They're putting together packets to send home while we were at level 6, and they too just have an incredible commitment to our students and just do whatever needs to be done to meet their needs. We're very thankful for that program. Hope we get to continue that. And a big event from this year, Gertrude Walker buried a time capsule back in 2000. So 2020 was the year that we were supposed to dig it up. So a shout out to the maintenance crew that came out to find it. It took a few days. We had a sidewalk installed after 2000, and it was very hard to find our time capsule, but we finally found it. We did a Facebook live stream and had former students join us from Arizona, all over the place. And we posted on Facebook. We took a picture of every item that was in the time capsule and posted it on Facebook. And right now it's on display for students. And we'll hopefully return those items to their owners if we can. I mean, I picked this item because it was so funny. It said that in 2020, our teachers would be robots, and there would be new student teachers, a new principal, and then the principal would be funny, and she would also be little. So we're not robots, but we do have robots helping us out quite a bit now. So some of the predictions were great. So that was a lot of fun for everyone. We hope to bury another time capsule this year and have plans to definitely have an early close paper in that one. And so for FAST, we've been using Fast Forward. It's a reading program to help fill in some of the gaps. Student learning with our less instructional time. And one of the things our staff has been doing to encourage students to do their best is anytime a kid levels up in that program, we have our intervention teachers go around and just make a really big deal about it. I wish we had a video of that, but that's one of the ways we're encouraging students to do their best and to apply themselves. And in order to support, the second step social emotional curriculum and the skills that our students are learning, we have a staff history person each week, and, that person, at the end of the week, turns in a list of names of kids they've seen trying to apply those skills that they're learning in second step in that curriculum. And we give a shout out to them on our announcements and reveal our mystery staff person. So, kids don't know who it is, so they're, trying to do really well all day long, is the idea. And then I wanted to, end their presentation with a word from some of our students. I asked some of our kinder kids and fourth grade students, what they love about Gertrude Walker. So I'm gonna share those videos. Hopefully you can hear it okay. Hey guys, what do you love about Gertrude Walker? Lunch. You like lunch? What do you like? I like recess. You love recess? I like public service. Very good. Very good. What do you like? You like PE? Very good. Thank you. You're the kindergartners for Ms. Garcia's class. Thank you for answering my question. We have Ms. Billings, a few of your Billinger's kindergartners. You like centers? What do you like at Gertrude Walker? All right. What do you like at Gertrude Walker? You like PE too? What do you like at Gertrude Walker? Going with Mrs. Stiver. Awesome. What do you like at Gertrude Walker? Purposeful play. That is awesome. These are kiddo Jonas Billingers kindergarten class. Thank you guys. And one more. Alright, Kim, this is one of our fourth graders. Can you tell us what you love about Gertrude Walker? Lots of sources and maybe some like what else I like about Gertrude Walker that I think is my friend. That is awesome. Thank you. What do you love about Gertrude Walker? One thing I like about Gertrude Walker is that good people that help us work and like they love us and give us like they could live long and my like parents say to me. Awesome. Thank you so much. What do you love about Gertrude Walker? What I love about her is good. It's really nice place. When you actually go in, are nice and welcoming and stuff. And like that's the fourth grade teachers, like all the teachers in this school are really cool. Yeah. It's awesome. Thank you. What do you love about Gertrude Walker? I like Gertrude Walker. Very good. That is awesome. Thank you guys so much. It is a great day to be a dolphin. So, one of our students was saying that they love that they are loved and there's nothing they can do about it. So we try to tell our students, we love you and there's nothing you can do about it. And then so it's starting to catch. My favorite, one of our students told a teacher this year, I love you and there's nothing I can do about it. I'm really thankful that that's happening with the kiddos. So that's my presentation. Do you guys have any questions?
Could you tell us a little bit more about the Engage program?
Yes. So, CareR was Gertrude Walker was a CareR school. We have Jamie Schwartz, our director, just does an amazing job. And so this year, we're able to continue a similar program called Engage through the grant money that we received for COVID. And so Daisy this year is the director over 3 schools, so she's not just focused on our kids. So they work on enrichment activities, they have a physical time, and they do interventions for reading. And they do also a math intervention. And that's over at, 5:15 each day. Yeah.
Thank you.
Uh-huh.
Alex, do you have any questions? I'm going to take that as a no. Thank you, Ms. Hollingsworth. Appreciate your time. Thank you so much.
Yes. Thank you.
Stephanie, do we have any correspondence? That takes us to the consent agenda. Do I have a motion to approve that?
Madam Chair, I'd like to make a motion to approve the consent agenda as presented.
There's a motion to approve the consent agenda. Is there a second?
I'll second.
Second by Mark. Is there any discussion? Stephanie, would you call the roll?
Laura,
Aye.
Dana. Aye. Janine.
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jennifer. Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
That takes us to the curriculum report on social emotional advisory update and mental health pilot. Glenda, I think you said to me before the meeting that you and Sarah were going to be presenting this together. Do you want to start us off?
I will be happy to.
Thank
I'm gonna
you.
share my screen.
I did. It's a great pen.
Okay, you'll be able to see the PowerPoint now?
Yes, thank you.
All right, super. I'm filling in for Josh tonight, so I'm gonna do his part and then Sarah will close it out for us. So there are two board goals that are, impacted with the social emotional. The first one is student self-awareness and, their skills, and the second one is keeping track of unhealthy student behaviors and resources. So hopefully we're gonna touch on both of those tonight for you. This is our first semester drug, alcohol, tobacco referrals. Just kind of, so you can kind of see what's been going on this semester. For comparison purposes, first semester last year at the high school, there were 21 drug referrals. And this year you can see that there were 7. So that's down quite a bit. There were 60 tobacco referrals first semester last year, and there were 5 this year at the high school. Interestingly enough, when you look at the middle school, the tobacco numbers are up just slightly. Forest Good had 2 tobacco incidents first semester last year, and KH had 1 tobacco incident last year. So we're seeing a little bit of an increase at the middle school, significant drop at the high school. At the alternative center, they only had 1 tobacco last year first semester, and now 7. So a little bit of a change there. There is obviously different student populations with hybrid and remote happening. So that may have a little bit of an impact, but I hope that maybe some of our education efforts are also impacting that. Josh is the chairperson for the Social Emotional Learning Advisory Council. They meet the second Wednesday of each month. Right now, they are working on our communities that care data, and usually that data comes in August or sometime over the summer. They had a change at the service center that provides that, and it was quite a bit later this year, so they're just now kind of diving into that. So we're going to go over the communities that care at another time. But I just want you to know that the advisory council is starting to look at that. It gives the numbers there. 52% of eligible Kansas students participated. And so those are, and I've got our numbers specifically on the next slide. So you can see compared to the state of Kansas, we do have a better participation rate than the state overall. So that's good to see. A little bit less interest as the kids get older. Last year we received a grant for the Stop It app, which is an anonymous source for students to turn in threats, self-harm, abuse, anything that they're worried about. They can use that app. It is on their iPad, and they can file a report, and then we follow up breakdown of the different areas that we saw. There were 5 that were unsubstantiated. There was a self-harm, a physical assault. You can kind of see around there, some bullying. So those were some of the concerns that were presented. And then what happened because of those concerns, you can see that in 5 of them, the law enforcement was notified. Parents were notified for 2 of them, counseling, suspension, and then for 7 of them, probably those ones that were unsubstantiated, there wasn't anything that happened due to that referral. I put this in here because I thought this was really interesting, that this window in the middle where you see the bulk of the report, that is when we were on remote or hybrid. So most of our reports did come in while the kids were at home. So this starts on 11/8 on this one and goes through to 12/20. So the yellow means that they were closed out. And you will see some weeks where, like this last week, where there's 4 that were closed out. What happens is periodically I go in there, and if a principal forgot to close it out, then I will close it out. So it will show that several were closed out in 1 week. And that was me getting in there and closing some out that I knew were addressed. We do have a new social emotional curriculum at all levels this year. Second step is at elementary, our K4 and our K6 buildings. They did a trainer of trainers live in July. Each building had a representative, and then they took it back to their buildings and trained them in August in the in-service days. And then there are over 30 on-demand webinars available for teachers and administrators in each area that they address. The secondary grades use college and career competency framework, 5 through 12. There is an enormous amount of curriculum with this program. And so to start out, each grade level chose a skill that they wanted to focus on this year. So 5th and 6th grade chose self-efficacy, 7th and 8th grade chose assertiveness, and 9 through 12 chose self-regulation. And then you see the list of the different trainings. The really cool thing down at the bottom, you will notice that there is a virtual professional learning community coaching with the staff. So in January, the crew from KU, I will mention KU again, yes, they're from KU that developed this. They will come online with our staff and answer questions, provide additional training, work through how to implement some of that, and they will continue that as we go on. This is probably a little harder to read, but each level of the CCC framework has a pre-test and a post-test. This is a pre-test for the middle school, 7th and 8th grade, on assertiveness. So you can see, for example, 7th grade got 47% correct, 8th grade got 48%, so pretty much in the same spot. They were a little bit higher in respect when you break them down into specific skills, a little bit lower in being able to express myself. So then they will give them a post-test to see if there was growth after they complete that unit. At the high school level, what this chart shows us is after each training, then the teachers get to pick which skills they want to focus on for their classroom. And obviously, that doesn't add up to 100%, but teachers can pick more than one skill. So as a teacher, I might want to have my kids work on creating a plan to accomplish a task. You can see that's 70%, while others want to work with kids on ignoring distractions. So the teachers get to pick which ones they want to focus on, and then they also fill out some surveys to talk about how it's going. Okay, Sarah, are you in there somewhere?
Yes, I am.
All right.
All right, well, again, my name is Sarah Stuckey, and I'm the school district liaison for Compass Behavioral Health. And as some of you may recall, 3 years ago, KSBE initiated a mental health intervention program to further incorporate collaboration between our schools and the local behavioral health centers. USD 457 was one of 6 school districts participating in year 1, and now at year 3, the program has expanded to 43 school districts. So quite a growth there. USD 457 has internally expanded as well. We now serve 12 school buildings in year 3, whereas in year 1 we served 5 school buildings. The school buildings that you see bolded are buildings that were added this last school year. As you can imagine, our youth are in great need for services and support with the unfortunate year we've experienced. Alrighty. Our data for fall 2020 reflects the students served for case management and for therapy in the participating school buildings. Naturally, collecting data was challenging this last semester, so please note that for those students who did not physically attend school but did participate virtually, those were not collected as absences. So for attendance, we saw an improvement of 68%. For academics, we saw an improvement of 47%. External behaviors, we saw an improvement of 87%. And for internal behaviors, we saw an improvement of 33%. And foster students served this last semester was 23 in those 12 school buildings. Each semester, we learned to make adaptations and adjustments with the program. This school year, each student receiving services at the school buildings are students who meet criteria for the severely emotionally disturbed waiver. With this CAMCARE waiver, students are eligible for Compass behavioral services such as case management, therapy, attendant care, parent support, and respite care. Students who do not meet criteria for this waiver are still provided in-office services. This differs from year 1 and year 2, as any student was offered in services with the fewer building participants that we've had. Other adjustments we've made this last school year, or this last semester, Compass has established consistency with intake, made available specifically for referrals received from school staff, and flexibility with intakes allowing them to take place at the school buildings or at the Compass Behavioral Health Office if preferred. Compass has provided their staff tentative schedules to each school building to better communicate with their school staff, and school buildings have visitor sign-ins specifically for Compass Behavioral Health staff, so instead of signing in with everyone else, they just have it for that staff, so that way they need to know if the student's being seen, or who they're assigned to, they can take a peek at that Compass sign-in sheet. School buildings have new adjustments this semester is that Compass has dedicated 1 full-time therapist to the designated school buildings during school hours, and we will be utilizing access for crisis intervention as needed. Some data for the need of our behavioral health services in our community is crisis data from this last year. Compass Behavioral Health received 380 crisis referrals for our youth. Alrighty, and I'd like to take this time to thank our school staff and our Compass Behavioral Health staff. This has not been an easy year. Their efforts put forth for our youth is instrumental during these uncertain times. I believe I've covered all of our bases, but if you have any questions, I'll open this time.
I do have one question for you. So you've had the 380 youth referrals for crisis, and so if you have a student that needs those crisis intervention services, but maybe a parent isn't quite ready to understand or see that their child is in need, because sometimes that can be a little bit challenging, what do you do at that point?
Our school counselors were involved in that process. request that, they have a form where they have to have it signed and returned, because that student is in need of services, that day.
Yeah.
Is that right?
It's a crisis form, so if it's for self-harm, for example, then the parent can choose to go to whatever service provider they wish, but they have to take their child somewhere to be screened and bring that back to us.
What happens if they don't?
No, I don't think we've had any of that, but we do work very closely with them, and we do now with Compass being in the schools, we can bring Compass over during the day for a screening if it's an emergency.
Great, thank you.
So just to make sure that I understand the numbers, on the 118 students served versus the 380 youth referrals for crisis, can you just explain to me, like, what exactly does that mean?
Absolutely. The 118 reflects the students that we have receiving ongoing services and are enrolled in those specific 12 buildings. The 380 crisis referrals can come from anywhere within the community, and at sometimes it could be a one-time event, or they received a few in-office services. But again, these are the kiddos that are keeping track of their progress, and they're receiving services in school.
Thank you.
Is that helpful?
Yes, thank you. Did you have a follow-up from that, or can I go to Mark? Mark?
I'm not sure who this is for, but I'm just kind of curious, just to be clear, before this wonderful opportunity and partnership with Compass, how did we address these situations before?
So prior to this, we followed our protocol with counselors. So they were referred to for self-harm or the CEP or whatever options we had. But we would recommend to the families that they find some kind of support because their child is expressing ongoing concern. And then they would follow up with our school counselors.
Okay.
But what we saw when we talked with Compass is that many times they may go for the screening, but then there's no follow-up, or that they would go to a Compass appointment that lasted 1 hour, say from 10 to 11, and be gone all day. Or, oh, we wanted to go out to eat, and they don't talk until about 2 o'clock in the afternoon. So the nice thing that this offers is now Compass in our schools, and that need it, can really get their services at school and not have to leave if they need more time than needed.
Because when the children are receiving services at the Compass Behavioral Health Office, it's up to the parent to do the scheduling, complete any follow-up, and stay on top of those appointments. Whereas the school, we're able to have more consistency. Our therapist is visiting our school buildings. Each school building gets a visit every other week, and case management visits are weekly.
But Linda and Sarah, right before we started the pilot, we did have some schools who had Compass in the schools, correct?
Right.
Yeah, they weren't seeing them for what I would call one-to-one therapy. They were more group social services. So let's talk about social skills with more of that kind of intervention.
And then I had a question about the 380 as well. Is that 380 individual youth, or is that 380 incidents of crisis? So somebody could have maybe 2 different incidents as part of that 380. Does that make sense?
Yes, I don't have an exact answer, because Compass pulled that data for me, but I would imagine that it reflects incidents.
Can I make another comment?
Please.
Sarah, I really appreciate your time and your presentation, and I'm kind of excited under this growing relationship with Compass, that you took that approach of assigning staff members to the individual teams in the buildings, if I understood your comments correctly. And I'm assuming that that really helps facilitate communication and the teamwork environment. Is that right?
Absolutely, and I would say that COVID has forced to evolve and get creative with communication, because, you know, I had principals saying, I don't know which staff members coming in, and especially with wearing masks, it just made that difficult. So again, each school building knows which case managers and attendant care workers they're coming in, who they're seeing, what day, what time of day they're coming, as well as therapy as well. So yes, it's definitely increased. We'll take that positive takeaway from COVID.
Yeah, thank you, Sarah.
I would like to add that you can probably tell that Sarah has awesome organizational skills. She juggles multiple therapists. She meets regularly with the campus staff. A teacher or a principal can call her and say, do we have a release, for example, and she finds that type of information. So she has just done a wonderful job in, you know, she started this program for us and has continued to grow it, and she's done great things for us.
Thank you.
Any other questions? I just want to say, I love this collaboration, I love the partnership. I've seen the benefit that it has on a number of students that I know, just from friends and other people I've talked to in the community, and it's just incredible that it's being done in our schools, and I can't emphasize how much it is needed and how much I appreciate that we are doing this.
Well, thank you both very much. I appreciate your time and for coming in this evening. Thank you, Sarah.
I muted myself, but no, thank you.
I'd say thank you, Glenda, too, except you're up next. So I'm going to say on to Glenda again.
All right, another PowerPoint, guys. With COVID updates, I hope. There we go.
It's up.
And we're gonna, pardon?
I said it's up.
Okay, thank you. So we're gonna talk a little bit about some plan recommendations and then a little bit of some interesting data. So first semester in review, and I know Dr. Carlin has mentioned this before, but I think our staff did a phenomenal job. Our level 6, you will note, was week 12 through 15 from November 23rd to December 23rd. The rest of first semester, in some capacity, we were on site. So I think they just did a great job in spite of all of the changes and learning what to expect from each level. And you guys witnessed that because we kept bringing changes back, and we're still bringing changes back. It constantly evolves as we learn what to expect and how to handle it. So since we've come back from Christmas break, we've seen a really nice decline. I would like to just think that some of this has to do with the mask mandate and people being more cautious. This was, of course, level 6 over here where we had 4 and 3. The blue is numbers by the week, and then the top orange line is the cumulative total. The 1/4 through 1/10 to 19 there, that is everybody that was sick over Christmas break and anybody that was sick that day. So we added all of those into that week's report. So that one number is a little bit skewed. For students, we're seeing a little bit of the same thing. We've got some very low numbers. We really think probably we weren't getting those turned into us while we were remote. And then they're going up a little bit higher than the staff, but still very, very reasonable. One of the things I talked to Mr. Norby at the high school about just prior to the board meeting, he shared that when we went into level 6 that week before, he had over 100 students in quarantine. That wasn't counting the positives, that was just quarantine and doing that hybrid kind of learning. And this week, he's got 16. So a tremendous difference. And he and I were talking again that there seems to be, in our mind, a direct correlation between the mask mandate and now the numbers coming back down to where it's manageable. Mr. Hogan, you want to jump in on this slide?
Absolutely. So we've been working very closely with Kenny County Health Department throughout this whole process, and as we are approaching, now in phase 2 of availability for vaccines being open to our staff, we sent out a quick survey. I think there was 5 questions involved, and had a really high response rate. 87% of our employees filled that out. So 1,122 survey results. And this is some of the information that we gained and will be utilizing as we again coordinate with Kenny County Health on how to get our staff the opportunity if they choose to have the vaccine. So the first information there is we had roughly 51% of our staff that said that they were interested in getting the shot. One of our questions was to identify our at-risk employees, and we grouped those together if they had underlying health conditions or were at a 65 years old or older. And so of our 567 people, that 51%, 24% identified themselves as being at risk, and then 30%, so 41 of those 136 people are just age alone. So no underlying health conditions necessarily, but they just meet that first criteria of being 65 years or older, which is now, as you're familiar with, I'm sure, they're able to get the vaccine in Kenny County in phase 2 without really any coordination as being a school employee. And then the last information is 7%, so 37 of our 567 staff that said yes, they would be interested in getting the vaccine, again, identified themselves at some risk based on a population of students that they would serve. Students where I think of typically in a maybe self-contained classroom that have a hard time keeping their masks on their face, and so there might be a little bit more exposure there. 7% of our staff identified there.
Okay, at this time, we're going to start the changes that we're recommending in the plan. So, Laura, do you want to approve these one at a time, or discuss these one at a time, or at the end, or go right through it? Tell me how you want me to proceed here.
Why don't you go ahead and go through all of it, and then we'll probably just take it piece by piece, so at the
Okay.
end.
All right. So the first one is in the technology plan. The current language says all K-12 students will be assigned an iPad that will be carried home each evening. What we are recommending is all K-12 students will be assigned an iPad. Grades 5 through 12, iPads will be sent home each evening at all levels. Grades K through 4 and levels 1 through 4, iPads may be sent home each evening. Levels 5 and 6, iPads are required to be sent home. What we are finding is that our little kids are forgetting to plug them in when they get home. They don't have homework typically to do, so they could probably do some of the fast forward or Greenbox apps, but they don't plug them in, so they come back the next day not charged, or they come back broken. We feel like we've kind of learned the signs of when we're maybe going to go up a level, or if a school is struggling with staff, they know they may be going up a level, or level 6. So we have enough warning now that we think then we can start this home. So the principals have gotten together and asked that they be allowed to keep the iPad at school for the lower levels. Elementary recommendations, this is for the library. I think I saw Linda on here.
I'm here.
All right, I'll let you take it.
Okay, we just had at level 4, some changes for the library plan to where at level 4 currently the library is closed. So the children have no access to books except what is in the classroom. And so we are proposing that only one class goes into the library at a time. 6 children can search for books. The rest of them are sitting on their spot and waiting patiently. And of course, they are hand sanitizing when they enter, and then again, before they search for a book. When the books are checked back in, they go into a tub designated for that class, and they sit there for 72 hours. The librarian does not touch the books during the checkout process. She has her scanner, and the children hold the barcode up, and she scans them that way. Random student checkout is not allowed, so you would not have students wandering into the library just willy-nilly or randomly, and only whole classrooms at a time will be in the library to check out books.
Okay, thank you, Linda. Amy, are you on?
Yes, I'm here.
Okay.
All right, so our first area of change was with lunch routines. The previous plan had said that we would have students be either in the cafeteria and or the classroom. And going through this, we've discovered that we can actually social distance much better using our cafeteria and our gymnasium for the students. So we would like to change that the students in the cafeteria or gym while maintaining the physical distancing as much as possible. And if, of course, there's a reason that we would change it, we would go with the safest location in the building. Dismissal and bus routines. The previous plan, we had stated that students who are walkers, or not walkers, excuse me, students who are car riders would stay in the classroom until the parents arrive, and then we would call the students to be dismissed. We have found that the kids are very good at going out to the assigned doors and staying away from each other. And then the parents are there, and it's very smooth, they roll in, get piled up, and leave. And then all bus students at 3:45 would be sent down to the gym. The teachers have their plan time from 3:45 to 4:05, the extra 15 minutes that was put in at the beginning of the year. On our classroom routines, at level 4, the playground equipment will be open when after school. Obviously, no yellow rooms would be using the playground equipment. Previously at level 4, interventionists were only allowed to push into the classroom, and now we're asking that they can allow to the hallway or the separate intervention room, limiting that to elementary students only. And similar to elementary, libraries will be open, one classroom at a time. Students will sanitize, entering and exiting, and there'll be no open library. And then the after-school program will be open at all levels except level 6. In the previous plan, we said levels 4 and 5 would be closed, but we feel that we can, with the staff, maintain the social distance and safety precautions needed to be ordered in order to be able to serve those. I think that's it.
Okay, thank you, Amy. I'm going to cover the special education for Josh, but I do believe I saw our coordinators and coaches here. So if there are specific questions, I think they'll be able to help as well. Changes to level 3 and 4 for special ed in our functional rooms, the RISE room. It is in both of those levels. It's the staff wear gloves and a face shield. They would like those taken off and use masks. In level 5, it does say that the parents can go into the home with KN95 masks and participate in Zoom. What they would like to change it to is the parents can go into the home with appropriate PPE. So maybe not necessarily the KN mask. KSDE has made a recommendation through their navigating change document, and just kind of highlighting this, that it does say that students requiring in-person education based on IEPs, as well as students failing 504s, that those students should be allowed to attend school in person. These groups should be small, and in a cohort of no more than 10 students in each group. Masking and physical distancing, 6 feet should be enforced. Students should remain with their cohort group for the duration of in-person building. So with this guidance, then the special ed team is recommending that for those self-contained classrooms, the rise rooms, and any other student needing significant support at level 6, stage 1, and, level 6 has several stages. Let me see here, if I can figure that out. Do you know how many stages we have here? I thought I had it right here, but it's not. I want to say there's 4, is that
We have
right?
five stages.
Okay. So if he's saying at level 1, students can attend on-site if 50% of the staff, including the teacher, are in attendance. So this is there because if the teacher is sick or our staff are out, then they're gonna have to be having remote learning. Students could come on-site for 2.5 hours per day. Classes will be split into an AM and PM section to allow for social distancing. Classrooms will be disinfected and teacher planning will be in the middle of the day, and parent supports will still have the option to continue to fully remote. Any stages beyond stage 1, all classes will be fully remote. Here is their decision-making flow chart. So if a student is in one of the following programs, the RISE room, self-contained life skills, the TEC is included in this proposal, then that goes to yes. Students can come on site for half day. There has to be an amendment written, and that needs to be completed and reviewed with the parent. If they are not in there, if the student is in general education classroom with PWC or resource support, then they would do Zoom and remote learning like everybody else. If it is a student in a general education classroom with a one-on-one para or a sign language interpreter or visual impairment support, then those students also get something for half a day. This impacts 13 of our schools, approximately 210 students, which is 2.8% of the total enrollment. So, across 13 of our schools, you're going to see about 100 kids in the morning and 100 kids in the afternoon. And that is all of our recommendations for that.
Any questions? I do have a question for the intermediate centers.
Go ahead.
Prior to COVID and the, kind of limitations, was there ever, open library time after school?
Yes. I know for a fact that ESIC, prior to COVID, the students could go in before the 8 to 8:30 time, or they could go in after school, from 3:45 to 4 o'clock, because our librarian was on hand and was willing to check in and check out at that time. I'm not sure how ESIC's been handling it. They do not have librarians this time. But prior to COVID, we did allow the open check-in.
I just wonder with after-school programs being open until level 6, and obviously if you don't have a librarian, that would make it challenging, but giving students access to books, I can't imagine the library being overrun population-wise at the end of school. I don't know, I just worry about kids who use books to escape or thrive, or however, having limited access if you can only go in by classroom. So didn't know if that's something you all talked about, or felt like it would be too big of an issue to have it after school open.
At level 3.5, we do have it open access right now, and I'm sure if I talk to my librarian, she'd be willing to keep it open, because that is something that she's very, very passionate about, getting books into the hands of kids. I think the reason we didn't put that in the plan specifically for changes, part of it is BSIC does not have a librarian, and there could be issues with that, where they don't have a librarian. But I know we want to get books in the hands of kids just as much as anybody. We have several shelves in our school that have books on them that are either books that have been discarded out of the library, or that teachers have brought in and donated. And it's just it's a free book. If you want it, you like it, you take it. So that helps with getting books in the kids' hands.
also add that when the library was then closed, many of the librarians, went, books on a cart and went to the individual classrooms and let the kids check it out that way. Or there, many of our schools are using an app that the kids can go in and peruse the books on the app and then pick out the book they want, and then that goes to the library, and the librarian can deliver that specific book to them. So they are, trying to, I think outside the box. I did see one library did a drive-through library, which was pretty cool. I watched it in action, and she had books like up and down both sides of the hallway, and the kids walked down the middle. And they did one grade at a time, one classroom at a time. And they could choose the books that they went through and for them to check out at the end. So again, not in the library, but a pretty creative way to do checkout. So she called it her drive-through library.
That's great.
And if I may also, I'm sorry.
No, go ahead, please.
I just wanted to, let you know that, our iPads all have Epic, which allows the students to read books of their choice during certain hours of the day. And then my librarian at Charles Stone, she has set a student library guild account for all our students, so they're allowed to access books electronically. Plus, she has obtained the campus library card for all of our students, so they can access that database as well. I know it's not the same. I myself rather read books than read on the iPad, but at least it is a form of the print material that the kids can access and can read.
That's great, thanks.
Also, the state of Kansas also did Mine on Readers, that we could get free. So we have done that as well for our kiddos. So we knew that at some point some of them would be home. And this way, again, it's another app they can access books online.
Thank you.
What are the ages for the what was that you described where the kids could order the book and it was delivered to them? Was that an app?
We have Destiny Discover, which at fifth and sixth grade centers, and that's where the kids can go in, see what books the library has, and could request that book in the library and can pick it up to him and take it to the student. I don't know if the K-4 buildings are using Destiny Discover, but we're using it, so.
Okay, thank you.
It's a similar app, but that doesn't sound like the name of it, and right now the name escapes me, but it is an app that they can have, it has all of the books they have in the library.
Okay, thanks, Glenn.
I don't think they'll deliver to your office though.
Well, yeah, sorry. I thought it might be limited. I think I have to say though that it's great to hear all that. There's more there than I was aware of. That's always neat. And I just want to say thanks to the staff for all that innovation. That's keeping the book access to the students. As Brenda said, thinking outside the box and for the purposes that we all want to see, which is to get books in the hands of kids. So,
I'm glad to hear that we've got the Ion readers back, because I remember when, I think it was Dr. Dennis who brought it to us when it first came out, and my boys really enjoyed it that summer. So, and then we didn't have the code anymore, and that was depressing. They really enjoyed it, so I'm glad we have that back. So are there any more questions? So we could do this either as 4 different motions, or we can do this as one, I think, full motion to approve all of them. Or if there's other questions or anything like that.
point of clarification, if I may.
Please.
These were all run by the Vision, District Vision Group.
Yep, the Select Vision Group met last week, and Linda, can you share their results on these?
Yes, and I should have mentioned that, I apologize, but yes, we took that to Select Vision, we used this exact PowerPoint with them as well, and all of the recommendations passed unanimously.
Well, I would recommend, Madam Chair, that if there are any questions revisions as presented.
Is there a second?
I'll second.
Any discussion? Stephanie, you want to call the roll?
Laura,
Aye.
Dana,
Aye.
Janine,
Aye.
Mark,
Aye.
Jennifer,
Aye.
Alex.
Aye.
Any other concerns or questions with regard to COVID before we move on?
I might just comment, I really appreciate the continued attention. I mean, we all know how the teams in the buildings all work together to make it work. And we say this multiple times, and I hope we never have to go to any levels higher than we're at right now. But in purposes and the preparations, that all of the teams are engaged in this protocol, I just really congratulate them for continuing to look at it and to come back and say, look, here's what we've learned, and here's the changes we suggest. And that's what makes things work. So we said from day one it was a start, and it continues to be a work in progress. And so everyone's doing what we hope that we would all do. And so I congratulate everyone for that.
I would piggyback on that too, just real quick, because I remember being very impressed with the level of detail that went into the plan initially. But with detail means that, because I'm sure everybody wanted to be a little bit on the conservative side, it meant that it would require more time and effort to then really look at it and make it truly work as we got through the pandemic. So I just appreciate it as well, the time that goes into continually looking at the plan and making adjustments that are best for our students. So, thank you.
So I think that takes us to the facilities plan update. KJ and John? Ooh, in person.
We want it to be different.
So John and I met with the Long Range Facilities Committee last week to give them an update. So Mark and Dana, this will be a review for you. Thank you for sitting on the committee and sharing your time with us. So we're just going to kind of walk through a shorter version of the presentation that we gave to them and give you guys an update of where we're at on last year's projects, current year's projects, and then just some things that we kind of need some opinions and guidance on. So John is going to start it off with a few of the things that he's been busy doing over the last year.
Rooftops on there, we started on our extended plan to replace the roofs district-wide. And the first project this year was 1800. And the southeast section on the east side of the building there, we replaced that roof. So that was the first roof project we did, and we'll start doing that. We've got 3 lined up for this summer that we're gonna do, and there'll be sections of roofs done each year now for the next probably 10 years. I know that's how long we run out, so. And none of the roofs themselves are needing replaced completely, it's just sections here and there, so that's how we're doing this. The heating and air conditioning, we did 3 buildings last year. Horse Good, Old Brown, and Hebert. That was almost a $2 million project, 64 units total of the 3 buildings. And majority of that was Horse Good, 39 units there. And then like 9, I think, at Old Brown, and 12, 15 at Old Brown, and 9 at Hebert. Lighting, we had talked about doing a district-wide lighting project a few years ago. We kind of scaled back on that a little bit. And we did 2 different types of retrofits that just took the existing fixtures that we have and went to LED bulbs, and which is it's a good way to go. It's good lighting. The savings you generate are there, but we still have the old fixture, and we still have the lights, the lenses that facilities have to pull down and clean both sides every summer. And so we've been looking at the LED panels, flat panels, and it's a much cleaner look. We did a trial run at the Sharman Library last year. During the year, we did it ourselves in-house, and was really impressed with it. And so we did 2 schools, Georgia Matthews and Jimmy Barker, this summer. And it's a very, very clean installation, looks good, and I think it will last us a long time. So that's the route we're going to go for the rest of the district. I've got 2 projects out today for that for this summer, East Sherman and Florence Wilson. And then that's going to give us a really good idea of our numbers moving forward on the lighting program. Painting and exterior, I've been concentrating on the 5 EFIS buildings. That's the exterior finish insulation system is what that stands for. And so the caulking had got really bad on those buildings. And sometimes in the wintertime when it snowed on it, you could see, where it was melting on the outside of the building from the inside air coming out through the building. So it just was detrimental. The building was gonna get worse over time. So it was important to get started on those. So we did Sits and Stones first, and we did VO last year, and now we're doing Florence Wilson and East Chardon this year. Get those buildings, and that's concentrating on the building envelope, the windows and roofs and exteriors. What we're concentrating on.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but those buildings look incredible after you did that.
Yeah, thanks.
You can interrupt with a comment like that anytime.
I didn't get to see them when they were new, so I'm sure they didn't look like they did when they were new.
Yeah. It blinded me going across the White House.
Yeah.
So, just so you know.
Yeah, I did.
They're great. Sorry.
So one of the things that we did over in the past year is if you remember back, I think 2 years ago now, we did roofs. We had someone come in and take a really good look at all of our roofs and give us a nice layout of here's all the things that need to happen in the sections, when they need to be replaced, all that kind of stuff. We didn't have that deep a dive on the HVAC systems, but we had a deep dive on it. And they gave us a 10-year plan for HVACs and what we need to do to get those updated. And so what I've done in the long-range plan is I've updated the cost, I've updated the timing of when those HVAC systems need to be replaced, and we'll talk about that a little bit more later, but it's at least updated numbers from what we had previously. So when you look at, we've got roofs updated, we've got the HVAC systems updated. We're getting, every time we do this, we're getting our long-range facilities plan a little bit better, a little bit tighter, a little bit more to a point where we think this is really good information that we're looking at. So,
Hey, Casey, that really good information, was that from a grant, and then we got a contractor, and they gave us that information? How did that work?
On
the 10-year roof.
Not a deep dive, but a deep dive.
Okay, that's the engineers that we use here at the district. They were involved back in 16 or 15 when we were looking to do the proposal contract with Trane. So that same engineering company has that information. So they know our district really well. They've been associated with us for 30 years, so they know these buildings very, very well.
Thank you very much.
Yeah.
And so one of the things we brought you a few meetings back was we asked for the
Yeah, so that study, told us a lot of stuff that we already knew. The dilution, the no outside ventilation, is being introduced with these old systems. The exhaust, we have some schools that have, don't have, take Georgia Baptist for instance, it doesn't have exhaust fans in the restrooms. Kitchen has an exhaust fan, but you don't have a lot of exhaust coming out of the building, so all the contaminants that are in the building just stay in there. The humidity levels, we don't have any dehumidification associated with any of the equipment that we have. And the filtration, it's very, very old. It's a MERV. MERV is the rating of the effectiveness of the filter. So we are running on MERV 8 filters. And recommendation now of the new machines have MERV 13 filtration. So, but we can't put that kind of filtration into our old equipment. Just the equipment would not sustain their life any longer. So that's, the study did tell us that, and that's what we've been working on since we started a couple of years ago with the Gertrude Walker, was the first building that we did. And so we are, we're looking at all of that, the dehumidification, the filtration, all of that. Looking forward to it.
And I think one thing we learned from that indoor air quality study is when we get the HVAC systems updated and we recycle and get to a point where all of the old equipment is new, John, correct me if I'm wrong, but my understanding was that we would hit 3 of those 4. We would hit the dilute, exhaust, and contain, not necessarily the clean. You don't have to, but that is one of the things that obviously would make it better. So John spent some time working on looking at some different options for the cleaning. And so that'll come into play later when I talk about numbers, but I just wanted to point out that, of the 4 things that I think ASHRAE standards says that you need to try to reach, we will hit 3 just by replacing equipment. But there is an opportunity for us to look at, can we take that clean air even further?
So on that note, this Nexus system that the training is recommended, they've vetted this technology and they're really excited about it. They think it can make a big difference in the indoor quality of these facilities. So I went to Manhattan on K-State campus there. They've invested a lot of time and money into this product also. They've got it campus-wide. And their researchers have really gone through it and they're talking it up quite nicely. And it is a good product. There are other products out there that are a lot less expensive for sure. So Train is touting this. It does everything else that everybody else does, but it cleans surfaces also. They're saying that the process, it's dry hydrogen peroxide is what it does, and it converts the humidity and oxygen levels that are inside of the space and turns that into dry hydrogen peroxide. And it kills everything, but they have not claimed that it kills COVID. But there's other technologies that claim the same thing. I think they will get to the point where they will claim that on this certain technology. But it's pretty neat. They have it in all dorms. I don't know if all the dorms, but some of the dorms I looked at at K-State, they have them in there. The student hospital, top highly of it, they've got a unit that's about the size of this trash can that's in the lobby area. And they said that they just said that their numbers are down so much comparatively to everybody else. I'm not that firm of a believer or engineer that went with me to look at this technology. He's not sold on it up there yet, but it's all still in it. So there's other technologies. And we'll get this new project that we're doing this summer here. I'm having the needlepoint ionization. It's a similar process to this. So that'll give us an idea of the number comparison to what I think training is wanting to know.
Yeah, I think for the Synexus product, it was about $3 million to put that throughout the entire district. So that might have been, I think, part of the reason why they thought, let's look at let's look at all the options and make sure we're actually gonna get $3 million worth of product. You know, it's still a little new, so let's try to spend a little time with it first.
A glorified air purifier is what it is.
All right, so recap 2019. So this would be looking at projects that were in the 2019-2020 school year, so last school year. And if you look, it's kind of hard to see there with the thing over it, but it's about $1 million is what we spent on our long-range facilities plan for last year, which is really low. Normally, we spend about $2 million on our long-range facilities plan, with about $1 million of it being HVAC. You'll see in the next slide when we get to 2020 that we kind of doubled up in 2020 on those projects. I could have pushed it back, but I wanted to be consistent about when I laid them in a calendar year about when we paid them. So when we paid for the bill, that's the calendar year and putting it in. But many of these, but the $1 million that we're kind of short in 2019 is due to the HVAC projects that we pushed a little bit further into last summer.
This says 19, but it's actually 18, 19 is what that is. Is that correct?
I think it's projects that were started in 19, so they'd be 1920,
Okay.
which would be last year. Because this is the current, and you can see already we've spent $2.4 million, which is already over what we normally spend. But if you look right here, there's about 700,000. There's 1.3 right here, so that's $2 million worth of HVAC upgrades. So you can kind of see how some of 2019-20 kind of melded into here. I didn't want to make it look too pretty because it's not really how life happens. So it fell where it fell. So you can tell we've gotten most of the projects on this year's plan completed. John talked about the LED lighting upgrades at Edith Sherman and Florence Wilson that will go out for bid and be done this summer, correct? Okay. Some of these others are smaller ones, paint, that may or may not get to, depending on where we're at. And we kind of knew that was going to be kind of a fluid process through this on the facilities funding. So when we laid in these new numbers for the HVACs, and we talked about the 10-year plan that they gave us, we put the new numbers in. Where does that, you know, I like to see the end number. I want to see, are we still going to be able to afford what we want to do? So here's how it looks. We still, I think when we presented last year, we were at about $27 or $38 million in long-range facilities planning. It's a little higher now. Part of that is because we have better estimates for that HVAC, and unfortunately that went up a little bit. So I still think we're okay going forward, which made me really happy. One of the things that I wanted to take a look at was the HVAC only. So if you look at that, $40 million, about 10 of it, 10, 11 million is HVAC only. I want to look at it in a little bit different light. So the things that are in gray, between 2021 and 2024, those would be replacing the remaining units that need to be replaced, that are old, maybe were part of the 1995 original. These things are old and getting ancient. In 2025, it decreases dramatically. And if you look at through 2030, there's 5 years in here, which averages about $500,000 a year. These would be replacing units that were replaced after the initial, but they're still not ready to be replaced yet. So if we replace them now, we'd actually be a little early, so we didn't want to go there. So these are the ones that we really need to look at replacing right now. And those are some pretty big dollars. And if you look at, we've been spending about $1 million a year on HVAC. It's going to take us a while to get through $7,300,000 worth of HVAC upgrades. One of the things that we've talked about is, what if we took that $7.3 million, we continue over the next 3 years to put $1 million, as we have been, in HVAC funding. What if we added to that $3 million of ESSER 2 funding? We believe we're going to be getting about $6 million. There are new guidelines that would allow us to spend some of that money on HVAC upgrades and clean air related to COVID. And then also, what if we took some of our capital outlay balance and really focused on trying to get to a point where we've upgraded all of our HVAC systems, we've got clean air and the best clean air we can have, and really get a good focus on that. So if we did that, the calculations I've done here bring up to about 9.6, and you're like, hey, that doesn't balance, what's wrong with you? You're supposed to balance. The number you can't see there, and I can't even see it, is obviously $2.3 million. When we talked earlier, and John talked about that cleaning technology, you know, we're getting 3 of the 4. What if we had a little extra money and we could focus on some of that cleaning technology? That's kind of where, and this is a very early initial what if, because my ask from you is going to be, does this sound like a good use of resources? Is this how you might possibly want to use ESSER 2 funding? We're going to bring, is it next board meeting, we're going to be bringing you a proposal on how we would like to spend those ESSER 2 fund dollars. Couple problems there, we're not sure if we're going to get it all. We're not sure if it's all going to be able to be used for what we think it's going to be. They may take, you know, we just want to make sure that it's earmarked for what it's going to be used for. And if all those things were to happen, would the board possibly consider looking at an option for this? If you have no interest in doing that, then I won't even go through the work to lay it out. We did lay it out to the Long Range Facilities Committee. They were supportive of possibly using some of these dollars. One thing to talk about our capital outlay balance. Currently it's about $8 million. Sounds like a lot, but when you're looking at $40 million worth of projects over the next 10 years, you know, we need to have that buffer, and we knew that's what we were building it up for. At the end of 2023, let's say this is how we've used our funds, I'm not suggesting that we would have $4 million left in capital outlay, because our current, the way the numbers roll in and roll out, we generate anywhere from $500,000 to $1 million a year, depending on what kind of year we have, in additional capital outlay dollars. So we're going to be spending $1.2 million out of it, but I'm also going to be putting some back in. So our we won't be depleting by half, but whatever we're able to save is going to help us on these years here when we've got some really big roof issues that in that plan, if we want to stay on track with that, those dollars will help with. So just looking at it, I know that schedule was a little confusing on how I laid it out. Do you have any questions about what we're kind of thinking of doing with this proposal?
Something you didn't mention that,
Sorry.
unless I misunderstood, one of the reasons you're bringing this forward is there a clock on some of these dollars?
There is a clock. So ESSER 2 funding has to be spent by 2023, I think September 30th, if I remember right. And that will be for however we use it, whether it's for HVAC systems, whether it's for anything for bridging that gap for kiddos on the loss of learning. So that's why we will bring you that proposal, but we can also use it for this, and depending on when we use it, I can pull from different buckets to make sure we spend that in time by doing it this way. You have a question?
Yeah, so do we have any idea what kind of a percentage we're looking at? So when you upgrade those HVAC systems, you're gonna be saving energy, we'll be saving particular energy for our buildings anyway. Do we have any kind of idea what kind of a percentage of energy efficiency is a difference?
On lighting, we can, we're estimating about 40% on lighting. So lighting, I'm gonna guess, is probably about a third of our energy expenditure or electric use. And don't quote me on that for sure. It's probably a little more than that, but the efficiency of the HVAC systems is kind of misleading because it is much more efficient units, but we're bringing in outside air. So now we're having to recondition or condition that air that we're bringing in. So that kind of offsets any of the energy savings that we would realize off that equipment. But the lighting is definitely one we're going to realize.
Can I throw something in there too? I know one of the things that when we listen to the engineers, if we do find a cleaning technology that we want to include that in the project, there's a likelihood, if I understood correctly, that may mean once we get out of the COVID recommendations are for much, much more outside air circulated. Once we get out of the need to do that, then we may have to circulate less outside air then to keep, and still be able to keep the same indoor air quality because of the cleaning technology. So there would be some potential return on investment of that cleaning piece, but I think what John is spot on is in terms of the upgrade here, although we think it's gonna be more, you know, where we would realize the savings, we will be doing something that we haven't been able to do with our current equipment, so it probably we won't see that unless we have the complete cleaning component.
That's a very good point, yes.
So from a financial perspective, it could potentially be a wash, but overall, the air quality definitely would be increased. So if you define efficiency as better air quality, then that's good.
And I think the thing we really need guidance from the board tonight on is the original plan would replace our HVAC equipment over 7 to 8 more years, if I understand right, to get through all that. This would give us an avenue to get it done in 3 years. And so it's reprioritizing a little, and it's, you know, nothing's set in stone, like KJ said, but do you want us to pursue a plan, put together a plan for being able to do that? Or do you want to leave it with a 7 to 8 year time frame in order to get through all that equipment?
Can I do ask a clarification question? So when we sat in the meeting with the Long Range Facility Committee, what they felt was the way to go was to definitely do it in a 3 to 4 year plan. But I don't recall that the cleaning technology was part of that necessarily. So we had the discussion on the overall value of it, and I could be wrong, so that's why I'm asking, because this is not my expertise. It felt like it was more like that's relatively new, we don't really know how effective it is.
On the Synexus?
Right,
Right.
on the cleaning,
Right.
on the cleaning part. I know as the committee, they were like, definitely this is a great plan, we should do the 3 to 4 year, but the cleaning part, I didn't think was a part of that.
Well, and to me, it's kind of just misleading because you would think that technology is going to replace our custodians in the building. And that's not accurate. That's that technology it's attaching itself to all the viruses that would land on a table or on a surface or inside of a locker or stuff that's not going to be hit every day. And so this technology they claim is a technology that was going to wrap itself onto a virus and attack it like that.
So what you're presenting to the board, is it just the, let's do this in a smaller time frame, as was suggested by the long-term planning committee? So it's just the HVACs, or it's the HVACs with the addition of the potential funding for cleaning?
So at this point, all I wanted to do is create an avenue that would allow the board to decide later if that's an avenue they wanted to take was the cleaning. At this point, we haven't recommended cleaning technology, we haven't gotten that far down the road. I just wanted to create funds because they've said it's a good idea. So you're spot on. All we are asking for right now is some idea of whether or not looking at a time frame of 3 to 4 years is something that you would like us to look at. We will bring the technology piece back to you at a later date once we figure out what that might be that we want to do, but at least then we've figured out a way to already pay for it. And you may decide you don't want to do that, and if you don't, that's fine, but then at least we have money for something else. So it was just my way of trying to plan ahead.
And I'm introducing, on the bids that I'm getting, I'm going to have a line item on needlepoint ionization, and that's a system that does this same thing without the cleaning part of it. And just so we can compare it, we can actually then compare what this Synexus system is or a different type of technology and give you a better idea of what that would run us. But at any rate, what we're doing is going to improve the air quality of the building so much that I think we're going to be in good shape.
I think that was good clarification, I'm sorry I didn't make that clear, but you're absolutely correct.
Because, you
I'm
know.
not looking for the entire picture, just prefacing what might be in the future.
And I just wanted, like, for the board, I mean, this was good information for me, is that many of the HVAC systems went in all at the same time. Because I guess when they decided that schools needed to be air conditioned. And so my question was, if we then replace them in a shorter amount of time, does that put us in another predicament where we have to replace them all at the same time? And I think this still allows some, gap, like a little bit of gap. So that was very, reassuring to me.
Well, and again, you had a good question that night too. So if we put all these systems in 95, we've had to make a few changes since then, but realistically, if we were to go to a 3 to a 4 year plan right now, like hopefully 3, we've been replacing HVAC for the last 3 to 4 years. So that would put us at about a 7-year span window. So what was once now all at once, now we've at least spread it out to 7 years. It would be ideal if we could spread it out even more the next go round, rather than having to say, oh my gosh, how am I gonna find $15 million to replace all the HVACs at once? So.
Which I think is kind of what you accomplish in 2025 through 2030, with spending about $500,000 a year. I think you would, that's a great point. I think we would be moving to doing that, so we wouldn't be trying to address all the needs at one time. We'd start to phase that in.
And what's sad is all these units are running right now. Today, they're all running. And, you know, so we could take a gamble and say, they're gonna run, we can get another 5 years out of these, but we're not going to. We're not gonna get that lucky. That's where this number comes from. This is a lot of the equipment that we already replaced of the initial round that's been in the district. So, a heat exchanger will go bad, and it's about half the cost of a new unit, so we'll just replace the whole unit then at that time. So that unit then is introducing that fresh air into the building.
That even though they're running, they're not producing necessarily the results that we really want to get to.
Yeah, they're conditioning and heating the building, but not the way we need them to, not the way we want them to.
Right.
Yeah.
I think another thing that's worth pointing out is we're already planning this summer, so because we have to be looking that far ahead. So decisions here will not affect this summer. Decisions here will affect the next few summers. So we got a little bit of time to make those decisions. And the other balance of this is, even though at some point we can earmark the funds, we've also got to have contractors that can do the work. There's scheduling issues and engineering issues and all those things that John has to balance. So being able to look out ahead is really essential, but it's not going to affect what we're able to do this summer. The projects he's got planned are getting close, if not ready to go out, and so.
They have long since been identified as a priority.
Right.
Yes, definitely. And this doesn't put anything on hold either that we're doing district-wide with everything else that needs, the carpet and painting and fire alarm systems, intercom systems, that'll all be integrated into our normal process. So.
I have a question. How would this affect if we get back to looking into reorganizing grade levels? Is that even, I don't know if it's even relevant, but.
It's gonna be the same as far as the buildings that we have now. We'll have to the ones we have to repurpose, I think we'll be able to keep the same systems, in those. The buildings that are gonna need additions to, they'll need additional equipment added onto those. But I think for the biggest part, the buildings, like the intermediate centers, if they were gonna be turned into elementary, the existing systems we have at the buildings would fix that, would handle that okay. It's just if we added on to a different school, that would be an increase.
Yeah, and those options we're still in a process that's sort of on hold in reviewing and considering into the future.
That's right.
The potential restructuring. Yeah, okay.
Yep, we're actually working on that now, so we should have a update for you guys on that here in one of the upcoming meetings. So again, not looking for an absolute, not looking for anything that said, yes, this is absolutely what we want you to do. I just am kind of looking for thumbs up, thumbs down. Is this something that you would like for us to present to you when we look at ESSER 2 funding? Or is this just and don't want to do it, don't waste your time?
Rather than do thumbs up, thumbs down.
Sorry.
How about if there's anybody that doesn't think that's the right direction, but for you to gather some information about, speak up and let us know.
Because really this is, unless I'm mistaken, this is a discussion of opportunity, information that you now have, and looking at potentially dividing 50-50, and putting 50% potentially, if possible, the ESSER 2 funds to this purpose.
If necessary. Depending on what cleaning approach is decided upon, whether it's the ionization or the synexis, the cleaning may be much less costly than $2.3 million.
Yep.
So KJ will be able to put a pencil to that, but I think really the opportunity is, do we try to do this in 3 years, or do we spread this out over the 7 or 8, how it was originally planned?
The HVAC part.
The HVAC
With
part.
the potential of adding.
Right. Yeah, it could be as cheap as 7.29 if we don't do anything with cleaning. But if we decide at some point to have some element of cleaning, then that would be a cost in addition to that. And KJ and John will bring the board back options for that in the future.
Well, I mean, it's a little hard to determine, like, we don't know what the other project you might present, but in keeping with process and procedure, how we've done things, I mean, I think that the long-range facilities committee felt that it was a good plan, and I think it is, in my opinion, something that we should move forward exploring and putting it with those SRT funding, like, possibilities.
And I would like to comment again too, that it is, we want a healthy environment for our staff and our kids, and it's a, it goes without saying, and that's been a focus. And so this certainly is consistent with all of that. We like the best environment for our kids and our staff to work and learn, so, and all the other functions that we do, so.
I agree.
Alex?
So, John, I apologize, I didn't hear your deal at the beginning. The cleaning part, is that something that the government is coming down on us for the money allocation to make sure that we're clean? I know we're hitting 3 out of the 4, which I think is great. Is somebody pushing the cleaning aspect of it? And second, is this coming from a mechanical engineer that got experience with some of this stuff, that works with this new equipment, or even existing equipment? And 3, is there many different types of cleaning systems that have different budgets attached to them?
Yes. Yes, on all of that. There are several different technologies that'll do this thing. And this Nexus is a new technology. And that's why we're just not sold on it yet. The engineer that we are dealing with, our consultants, have not heard enough about it either. So, but they are firm believers in the other technology that's out there, and we are finding that that's probably close to half the price of this technology. And like I said, we'll know more than that when we get these bids in. I think this week, these bids are coming in for this summer project. And so I'll have a good idea of how that's gonna cost out. This isn't a directive that government is making us do, or ESSER's making us do, or anybody's making us do. It's just a recommendation. And we're following all of the recommendations on all of our purchases moving forward. The clean part of it is additional. And, I don't think our buildings right now are detrimental in any way, shape, or form with the kind of units that we have in place now. So it is just gonna be an added sense of comfort for occupants, I believe. It's the technology, this Synexus technology it's basically a glorified air purifier is what it is, because you can actually smell cleanness when you walk into the room. And not like chemicals, not like they're using any chemicals, just I haven't used any of those air purifiers myself, but I think it's similar to that. Does that answer, I think, two of those questions? I don't remember that, or didn't write those down.
No, you got them all. The other piece was, I think, for KJ, the $2.3 million, what does that apply to? Is that just a one-year cleaning of all of our systems, or is that part of the long-range plan that tallies up to $2.3 million with 4 schools, 6 schools? I didn't hear that first part.
The 2.3 million is what I've built into a hypothetical plan as a set-aside, kind of a midpoint between the highest expenses that we've seen for that cleaning technology and some of the lower end. Just trying to have some funds in reserve, and that would be basically to purchase the cleaning technology, the equipment needed, and that would be a one-year implementation cost, just like a new HVAC unit would be.
And there is ongoing maintenance associated with that Synexus system that I did not mention here that I would have to consider. It would put probably a major load on my staff to have to integrate that into my maintenance plan on a yearly basis, because there are the catalyst in this. The system uses a UV light and a catalyst, a patented catalyst that is the main parts, and a fan are the main parts of this unit, and there are some maintenance associated with those costs. So that's definitely what we'd have to weigh out before we did any commitment to that technology. But we just want to let you know that it is there, and that we can integrate that into any of the systems that we use moving forward.
Yeah. I think your guys' HVAC proposal, obviously I'm a big proponent of trying to do it a little sooner. For one, I know that most of our units, except that have just got changed in the last 2 or 3 years, but most of our mechanical systems are getting older, showing a little wear and tear, a little age, and instead of running at 89 to 93% efficiency, we're probably getting 67 to 74% efficiency out of them, which also demands more of our utilities to run those systems. So the sooner that we can get this done in the 3 or 4 year span, the more we can take advantage of the current electric utility rate versus the 7 or 8 years when we don't know what that rate's going to be. I don't know when the last time, and KJ, you probably answer this, but I don't know when the last time that we've had a utility rate hike from Wheatland Electric or the city of Garden City. But I'm sure if it hasn't been, it's probably coming. And so we probably need to look at taking advantage of that lower utility rate with these projects, obviously as soon as the board agrees to. But I am in favor of, in my opinion, to look at the cleaning aspect of it, and knowing that we're not making the decision tonight, but to bring the information back to the board the next time that's possible, and hopefully we get some more different options and pricing nailed down that we can possibly move forward. So I appreciate the proposal.
Any other questions? I think you have a consensus to move forward. Thank you, appreciate it, thank you.
All right, thanks.
Appreciate your time. Hey, Dr. Carlin, are you, or Keith speaking?
Mr. Hogan's gonna do the next section.
Can I mention one other quick thing? It was said, I think Dana said it, but that advisory group that you all have on the long-range planning there's institutional memory there in the community that's certainly notable. And one or two of those folks may even be on the edge of retirement.
Yeah.
You know, but a wealth of perspective and history and knowledge there, and so I certainly can congratulate and thank those folks for their time working with you all to come up with, to review these strategies.
If it's the one I'm thinking of, I think he's actually an inch over retirement, but he has agreed to continue to serve on that committee for a period of time to share some of that knowledge that only he would have.
I think two of them are on either side of that inch of
Yeah,
retirement.
the other's another one that may be
Right, so
inching as well.
it's just community members staying engaged and very thankful for that.
Okay, thank you.
Mr. Hogan, you're up.
Yes, ma'am, thank you. Good evening, board. I'm going to talk to you tonight about a waiver and a potential calendar change. KSBE for this year only has allowed a waiver for our 1,116-hour calendar structure. They've allowed up to 20 hours of in-service collaboration days to be counted as full student contact time. Currently in our calculations, when we figure our calendar hours, we only get to count half of those days, 3.5 hours, as student contact time when we do not have students in the building. So the waiver takes into consideration days that are established or created from December 1st through April 30th. So currently we have 3 days that fit or qualify to use as a waiver. So board in front of you, you have a paper copy of the waiver calendar proposal, and you also have a yellow copy that is our current calendar. Alex, I apologize, I didn't realize you were going to be away, so I'm going to share my screen to let you at least see one of those. So hopefully you're seeing the calendar here. So under the current waiver, so fitting our timeline, this January 4th date fits for the waiver, the 18th of February date fits for the waiver, and then our 2nd of April date fits for the waiver. So those were built in and approved in our current calendar as in-service collaboration days, and we can utilize that to count towards those 20 hours. So we met with the GCA leadership team along with Dr. Carlin's leadership team, and we just started proposing ideas on whether or not we took advantage of the waiver, how and what that would look like. So we came up with a proposed calendar, which we turned around and then sent to the head auditor of KSBE, just kind of as background, make sure that, what we were thinking in terms of waiver. I did have communication with another person at KSBE, not the auditor, somebody else. But this was kind of our last double check, if you will, just to confirm our calculations. So during that process, we learned some information that our current calendar, one of the days that was designated as Parent-Teacher Conference Day, the February 26th date, previously all Parent-Teacher Conference days get to count as full contact hours. And the 26th date, we built in those hours as such, and the auditor let us know that we couldn't do that. So kind of the end result of our conversation with the auditor and our proposal is that we want to utilize the waiver, but we're going to use it different than what our proposal was. So we're going to use it to correct the error that we had for the 26th, and then also that gives us essentially a half a day that we would have access to through the waiver. So our proposal would be to take our last day of teacher contract, which was currently approved for June 1st, that's a half-day work day, and we would move that forward to the 28th of May. And so now the 28th of May would become a half-day with kids and a half-day work day, allowing staff to check out on that day. So we're not asking for, action from the board tonight. Certainly, as you all know, the board has the authority to approve the calendar, and you can do that as long as it meets the terms of the negotiated agreement, so there would not be a need to have an MOU. As I mentioned before, we have discussed this several times with DCA leadership and Dr. Carlin's leadership team, and so we would like to propose this to the board as a joint proposal to have the board consider this and changing our calendar, our current calendar, and we would ask that you do that at our next meeting. questions that I might answer in terms of the waiver or the calendar?
So we get 20 hours, which is 2 days, right? I'm sorry, I feel like this
Dana,
is
I'm
much
sorry.
different than how I first thought it was gonna go. So is that, we get 20 hours or no?
So the waiver allows up to 20 hours.
Okay. And that would be essentially 3 days, right?
For us, it would be 3 days, right?
And so then we have to correct an error the 26th, and then we have a half a day on the 1st, and a half a day was supposed to be, or it was supposed to be a full day on the 1st, so that was 2 days, right?
It was a half a day, on the first, that's what's approved in our calendar. June first is a work day in the morning currently.
So we're only using 2 days.
We would essentially be using a day and a half. So the June 4th day, half of that time is already calculated as student contact time. The same with the 18th and same with the 2nd, because that's what has been allowed in the past, is to count in-service collaboration days as half student contact time. So essentially, we gain a half a day each for those 3 days that we already have approved or built into our calendar. So 10 and a half hours roughly is what we gain. So 7 of those hours, you can think of 7 hours we're fixing an error on the 26th, and that leaves us the half of the day, 3.5 hours, that we could utilize in another purpose. And so the proposal would be to use that half day by moving our June 1st date up to the 28th. The 28th currently is a full student contact day. So we're essentially reducing our student contact by 3.5 hours, which is allowable under this waiver based on those days that we have built in.
So let me back up a little bit, because initially, I think our understanding was, like on those 3 in-service days that we have in the window, that we would only have to count half of each of those days because we're only getting to count half the student contact time because they're in-service days. What we learned from the auditor is the 20 hours would apply to those days. So those 3 days would be the only days that would count towards the waiver. So that gives us a day and a half back to work with. We don't have 3 total days to work with. So one of those days gives us back the hours that we counted on the parent-teacher conference day that they're not gonna let us count. And the other half day is the June 1st to May 28th date. So originally, we thought we'd have 3 days of extra time to deal with, but the auditor explained to us that we would not. And when I say we thought, that was, again, I think Mr. Hogan had talked to somebody at KSD that kind of led us to believe that. But what we've learned now from the final authority is that would not work. And so that's why, and we shared all this with GCA today, and really, I think we agree the best thing we can do is fix the issue on February 26th and end school a half day early so nobody has to come back in June.
So in keeping with a lot of our other processes, in this case, our advisory group is partners that we always work with, the teachers union. And you've got to have a recommended solution, sounds to me like.
We do.
Yeah, that's correct, yes, sir. This would be a joint proposal.
So we're not asking for action, they're not asking for action tonight, they're asking for action at the next board meeting. So, what I would suggest is, are you gonna put this out at all? Sure. Is, getting some feedback on this, and then unless Mr. Hogan or Dr. Carlin here otherwise, we'll put this on the consent agenda February 15th.
That would be great, Madam President, thank you.
I am sorry for the surprise on the, on 26th, but it sounds like
Me too.
I'm happy for a recommended solution, so.
Any other questions or discussion on it for right now? Thank you, Mr. Hogan, and
Thank you so much.
the GCEA for working with our leadership team on that. Appreciate it.
Yeah, thank you.
Dr. Carlin, are you going to lead the discussion on the resolution?
I'll start it out if that's okay.
Please.
Amanda, can you throw up a couple of slides for me? So, included in your board packet is a resolution recognizing the efforts that have occurred in the community to help us get kids back in in-person learning. You know, one thing we all learned in December is nobody likes remote learning. Kids don't like it, parents don't like it, teachers don't like it, superintendents don't like it, school board members don't like it. And so I think the data that we have, and I'm going to share a little of that with you here, of kind of where we were and where we've gotten to, didn't happen because of something just happening at school. I think it happened because of community-wide efforts. And so that's the purpose of the resolution. But if we look at, and I know the dates are a little hard to read, but where you see the peak there, that's early November. We're looking on that chart at positive cases, the new positive cases by week in Finney County. So you can see we're in a lot better place. They're on the right side of that chart than we were at the middle of it. When we go to the next one, Amanda. Oh, thank you. So you see the arrows that come into place there. And then on the next one is the positivity rate. Again, if we look at the arrows, that's about the time, pretty close to the time, I think we were in hybrid learning at that point, about ready to go to remote, and where we were and where the fall had led us to, and where the community is now, there at the end. If we look at our number of students that are positive, the orange line is the cumulative year-to-date total, the blue line is the weekly amount. So again, if we put the red arrow up there, that shows where we were about the time we went to remote learning. You can see the space under that line looks considerably different than where we're at now, again. And I think that stops, is that a week? I think maybe stops a week short, so I don't know that it even has last week's data on there, which also is very good. So we've seen great improvement there. If we look next chart at our positive staff members, the same kind of thing. If we look at where we were right before we went to remote learning and where we are today and what that looks like. And then lastly, if we look at our staff absences by week, and if you remember, the blue and the orange line are the number of total absences. The gray and the yellow line are the number of absences related just to COVID. So you can see that there's a gap in there. That's when we were not, that's when we were on holiday break. But you can see again where we were, where the red line is, the red arrow, compared to where we're at today, is remarkably different. And I really do not believe that would not have happened without the efforts that our community put in to help us with that. So this resolution essentially recognizes that. I will be presenting some information tomorrow to the City Commission at their meeting, and should the board choose to approve this resolution, I think most likely a board member will also share that resolution with the City Commission at their meeting tomorrow. So, Laura, Troy, do you have anything you would like to add? It was kind of an idea that spawned out of our agenda meeting to do the resolution, so.
I think, Troy Underwood contacted one of the board members and we discussed it at the agenda meeting. I think it came, was it Alex who kind of brought that up and, suggested something, that way we could all vote on it. And that way it would be coming from the board as a whole, with regard to our position on it. I'm not gonna be able to be there. I have a hearing at that time. I think Alex said that he would be available and willing to read it, if the board, were so inclined. So, I think that's pretty much. Mark.
Yeah, Madam Chair, I think this is a great idea, and I really appreciate Troy reaching out. We talk often in the process and in the weeks that were encompassed in that graph that you presented about how, not only how we were considering as a community of educators in USD 457 to respond to the health, safety, and welfare of our kids and our staff, and what we were all trying to achieve as a school district, but that we couldn't do it alone, and we were a part of the broader community. And so I just think it's only appropriate to turn around, and particularly where we have information that we feel pretty good about our teams and our teachers and our schools and how they responded to the need, and that it wasn't alone, that we reach back out and recognize and thank the rest of the community where we can, for the effort. So I just think this is very appropriate.
I would agree with that. We asked the community for support and help, and they've stepped up and really helped us to where the kids could be back in school face to face. I think it's appropriate to do something like this to thank them for their efforts.
And so in the silence, if I may, I would move that we, just put it on the table, that we adopt this resolution as presented.
I'll second it. Motion by Mark, second by Janine. Any discussion? Stephanie, you want to call a roll?
Madam President, before you vote, would it be appropriate for somebody to read the resolution?
I can certainly read it if you want me to. That's fine. It's Resolution 2113, a resolution recognizing the efforts and accomplishments of the Garden City and Finney County community to mitigate the infection rate and spreading of the COVID-19 virus. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has had a profound and lasting impact on the city of Garden City, Kansas and Finney County, Kansas, hereinafter referred to as the community. Whereas the COVID-19 pandemic has materially and significantly impacted in-person learning for all students in Unified School District number 457, USD 457. Whereas since the spring 2020 school semester, in-person learning has been affected as a result of the COVID-19 pandemic. Whereas USD 457 has implemented #457strong, a vision for growth, success, and safety for all Garden City Public Schools reentry plan during the COVID-19 pandemic, USD 457's plan to help mitigate the spread and impact of COVID-19 in the school district. Whereas as a result of the USD 457's plan and the community's adherence to the 3 W's approach of washing your hands, watching your distance, and wearing a mask, 3 W's approach, significantly contributed to a reduction in COVID-19 infections in the community to the point that USD 457 has returned to in-person learning at all educational levels and schools. Whereas without the support, cooperation, and perseverance of the community with the 3 Ws approach, and return to in-person learning would not have accomplished the level of success achieved. And now therefore, be it resolved by the Board of Education of Unified School District number 457 as follows. 1. The board hereby recognizes the efforts of the community to adhere to the 3 Ws approach, as well as support and cooperate with USD 457's plan, and urges the community to continue to follow to the guidelines set forth in both. 2. The board recognizes that without sacrifices of the community, the success of return to in-person learning for USD 457 students would not have been possible. 3. Accordingly, the board wishes to recognize the efforts of the community by passing this resolution so that the appreciation of the board, as well as the employees of USD 457, can be publicly acknowledged. Adopted by the Board of Education, Unified School District number 457, Finney County, State of Kansas, on the first day of February 2021. And it'll be signed by me if passed and attested to by Stephanie. I saw some other typos.
Setting aside the typo, I'm going to call for the question.
Stephanie?
Laura?
Aye.
Dana?
Aye.
Janine? Aye. Mark?
Aye.
Jennifer? Aye. Alex?
Aye.
Thank you very much.
Thanks to all.
Okay, that takes us to board open discussion. Alex, I'm going to start with you. Okay?
I don't have anything. I just appreciate everybody's continued hard work on the COVID. Trying to get the plan better for the kids, the students, for learning. I appreciate AJ and John and facilities, long-range facilities group. Keep moving forward and making our schools a better place to have schools in, and just the administration for keep trudging on.
Thank you. Jennifer?
I don't have anything.
Dana? Mark?
I don't have anything.
I appreciate everybody's hard work, and the presentations we've had tonight have been really informative and fun. Just great information for us to have. I've been kind of looking through schools' Facebook pages, and I just kind of wanted to give some kudos to Charles Stone's. I ran across theirs today, but they have something every single day so that their kids that can't be there, or they're out with COVID, or they're at home sick, or they're remote or hybrid. They have information on there, morning announcements, a riddle, fun facts. They've made it really interesting and kind of fun and engaging for the kids, so I appreciate that.
Just to update you guys, we did have the last delegate assembly for KASB, so the legislative agenda was approved. Some things that you all might want to keep an eye out on and speak with our representatives would be House Bill 2068 and House Bill 2119, as well as Senate Bill 61, which is dealing with school vouchers and some other tax credits, which would take away base state aid per pupil from public schools and things like that. So being aware of those things, and then kind of keep an eye on those. KASB, I know, has been lobbying very hard against those 3 bills. I reached out to both Representatives Jennings and Wheeler and then also Senator Dahl, with regard to those three bills. And then, but if you are so inclined, you might want to keep an eye on those. And then, if the majority of this board is so inclined, April 21st and 22nd is the Women's Leadership Conference that KASB is putting on. It's going to be in Manhattan. Sorry, Alex and Mark, you're not invited. But
How else can we support it?
yeah. So, but it looks like it's going to have some really interesting keynote speakers and some breakout sessions. But and there are the first 100 people, if they were interested, can go in person. It's going to be in Manhattan. And then they're also doing it virtually as well. So I'm going to be attending virtually. But if you're interested, you can check out the KASB website. I've heard some really great things about, well, not last year's, but the year before, because I think they had to cancel last year's. But if you're interested, you might want to, I don't know if it's part of the season pass or not, but,
It's not an issue if it's not.
okay, but, and I'm getting the yawn sign from Alex, thanks. But, so I wanted to make sure that you guys were aware of that, also if you were interested. And then, I also wanted to thank, the website and school district for posting that it is Black History Month, this month, and making sure that that's out there as well, because today is the first day of that. And so, especially dealing with diversity and everything that we're dealing with in today's society, I'm glad that we're addressing that as well. So thank you for looking into, for doing that and posting that on our website. So, Dr. Carlin.
Thanks. First, I'd like to compliment the three young ladies that spoke in our public comment time today. And we had a report today that talked about the assertiveness level of some of our kids. I think we have three examples of young ladies who understand assertiveness and were respectful in all that they did, and so I really want to thank them. As I mentioned, I will be getting in contact with them. I do want to highlight a couple things because I certainly don't want there to be a perception that the district doesn't value our arts or music programs. And I'm not gonna rattle everything off, but first we got to understand that this has been a disruptive year for everybody, and it's unfortunate that it's been that way and needs to be that way. It's that balance between promoting safety and trying to have some normalcy. But I do believe our district has a history of being very supportive of our music programs, band, vocal music, and orchestra. We spend about $40,000 a year purchasing band and orchestra instruments. We spend about $25,000 a year repairing those. We offer rentals for instruments that most districts don't do, in an effort to provide more opportunities for our kids, being sensitive to the socioeconomic needs of some of our families and the expense of instruments. We send our music staff to the Kansas Music Educators Conference every year. We have a band that takes a trip every 4 years that we support. We have a show choir that takes a trip to Branson every other year that we support. We've invested in new uniforms and choir robes. We've invested in state-of-the-art facilities. So I could go on, but I just certainly, one of my goals as I work with these kids that brought the concern to us will be hopefully to help them understand that we do support our arts and our music, and sometimes even if the answer ends up having to be no on something, that doesn't necessarily mean that we are not supportive of that their issues are not important. And I'll report back to the board so that you know kind of where that issue goes.
Steve, could I comment on that?
Absolutely.
It hasn't focus on the role of performing arts in, I don't know if it's the rose capacities or capabilities, or basically focusing on those things that we want kids to be able to do in the full range of their education, which includes the arts. And so certainly from a curriculum standpoint, that's our focus. I think the presentations tonight, from what I heard, was really sort of a part of other things that were on the agenda, which is tweaking our current response to safety protocol where we think we can. And I wonder whether perhaps the presentation from those young ladies was a call for that consideration in their particular interest and concern as well. So I appreciate their attention, I appreciate your comments, and I certainly want to emphasize, obviously, that it's right in the curriculum that they be able to do those kinds of things, and we want them to be able to do it. But within the policies that we're trying to operate in.
We touched on a little bit tonight about some vaccine information. Mr. Hogan mentioned we've been working closely with Finney County Health Department. The state plan is available online, and I think Finney County's plan is now available online at the Finney County Health Department website. In phase 2, there are 2 groups that are ahead of educators. The first is first responders. The next is people 65 years old and older. We hope by the end of this week to have a tentative date to begin to advertise to our staff when vaccinations will begin. Probably the biggest piece in that is really the supply that comes from the state. And so, but just certainly wanting to, and we've been keeping staff informed, but we hope to give them something a little more definite in terms of a tentative date. And that tentative is primarily because of supply. It could change if the supply increases or if the supply decreases. So, and then lastly, Live Well provided some yard signs for board members if you're interested. Amanda will have them on your way out. If you'd like one, please stop. It's Help Durham City Beat the Virus. It lists 4, 5, 7 strong. I think they customized them, and then talks about the 3 W's. So they provided those for us and asked if we would share them with the board. So that's all I have. Thanks.
Thank you. Anything else before we close up? The next meeting of the Board of Education will take place on Monday, February 15th, 2021 at 6 p.m. here at the board meeting room. Do I have a motion to adjourn? A motion by Alex. Is there a second?
I'll second it.
Second by Janine. All those in favor, please raise your hand or click the leave button. Opposed? Motion carries. Thank you all. Have a good night.